Hello everyone, my name is Ephraim Gagas and this is the Blunt Whistle. So I got talking with a friend and we discussed quite a lot of things, one of which of course was the state of our nation. And I had to argue that it is now appropriate to, if you meet any Nigerian who is not just a Nigerian but also lives in Nigeria and is conversant with our current experience with the present administration, you can greet the person happy survivor. And why not? We'll come to that in a moment. But let me lay the foundation to say this moment that we are a people that have become accustomed to living unassisted by government, even when the terms of the social contract are clear. Government at any time and in any place exists to provide for the maximum welfare of the people. This is not a monopoly of those who are in advanced nations of the world. In fact, it has nothing to do with where a nation is on the timeline of development. Underdeveloped, developing, developed, it doesn't matter. It is constitutionally guaranteed, and it is also morally justifiable that government exists to provide for the welfare of the people. Now, since our experiment with self-governance in Nigeria, now 64 years, what we have had are either leaders who don't understand the essence for the existence of government in the first place, or people who have continued to live in denial of why government exists, which is to provide for the welfare of the people. Now, that is sad. But before we go further, let me state again, maybe even make an argument, a strong argument at this point, that there's something fundamentally wrong in the way and manner we orient ourselves politically. And it has nothing to do with just the political elite, but also some of us, if not all of us, who are on this other side of the leadership divide as well. Think about that. There's something fundamentally wrong in our understanding of why the public office exists, whom it exists for, who should occupy it, why he or she should occupy it, what they should do, they that occupy it, what our relation should be with them that occupy the public office. There's something fundamentally wrong with our entire understanding of why the office of public service exists. And maybe I should state, rightly so, that perhaps it is one of the reasons why we are where we are now. Now back to the issue. Don't you think it is proper to greet every Nigerian you see now, happy survivor, at a time when families now go to bed without eating throughout the day and are unsure of where the next meal is going to come from? Those that may able to provide a meal for their families may just be one. And nobody is talking about balanced diet. Just finding something to eat is sufficient. Live for the next minute, maybe for the next hour, maybe for the next day, with the hope that they will find something to eat, just something to put in their stomach. Nobody's talking about self-actualization. Nobody's talking about living for a higher purpose. You have to be alive before you can pursue your dreams. So that has become a luxury in our nation today. In fact, even the right to survival is becoming a privilege, and to some people, even that right has been taken away from them now. So isn't the Nigerians' story one of survivor? Think about it. At a time when, as part of coping strategies, parents are withdrawing their children from schools, and I'm not just referring to private schools, even public schools. And why? Because they cannot afford it. And here's the awkward thing about that. Nigeria now ranks as one of the nations with the highest number of out-of-school children in the whole world. And we claim to be building a future for our young ones. Okay, maybe not even for our young ones. We claim to be building a future at all. Does that even make sense? When children that ought to be in schools are roaming the streets with no hope at all. Our young ones, having attended nursery schools for some of them, then primary schools, secondary schools, tertiary institutions, and some even have postgraduate degrees, have been roaming around the streets without employment. Now, a good number of them are deploying their knowledge, their skills, and innovative ideas into cybercrime. And these are people who are supposed to be the pillars on which we should build the future for this nation. And the president came out the other day and he said that what the leadership is doing now is taking hard decisions to fix the nation. I wonder how this is taking hard decisions when the only people who appear to be profiting from the so-called hard decisions are those who are in the corridors of power. So isn't the Nigerians story one of survival? At a time when it is a luxury to go to bed at night and sleep with your two eyes closed, without the fear of a possible raid, or even move from point A to B without the fear of being kidnapped. And the kidnap for ransom industry has been expanding relentlessly. Bandits have become emboldened. They are on TikTok, challenging even the military personnel of the country, the entire military infrastructure. And why not? Because of the duplicity of the leadership, the duplicity of those in government. Because if we were serious about fighting insecurity, we shouldn't even be talking about this at this point. Isn't the Nigerian story one of survival? And shouldn't you greet every Nigerian you see today happy survival at a time when for the middle income earners and those at the bottom of the income pyramid will have to go to market and fight inflation that has continued to skyrocket, and the authorities concerned, I'm talking about the central bank and the Ministry of Finance, who are responsible for coming up with appropriate mix of monetary and fiscal policies to fix the problem, remain clueless about what they need to do at this point to fix the problem, except if they are living in denial at all. How are people coping? How are people surviving with a wage below minimum? And I'm not referring to 70,000 naira minimum wage. The which, if you even index that against inflation, what you will see is not just inadequacy, but deceit of the Nigerian worker. I'm talking about the 30,000 naira minimum wage, which some states are not even paying. So how are people coping with the cost of living as a result of the terrible mix of policies and programs of government, one of which is not just the first subsidy removal, but deliberately floating the exchange rate? And hard decisions? Are these hard decisions? Why is it that the people who are the victims of the hard decisions are those people who are not in government offices? The average, or what we may call common Nigerians. And there's nothing common, there's nothing average about any Nigerian at all. Subsequently, we'll talk about that, maybe in another video. There's really nothing average and nothing common about any Nigerian. If there's any common denominator at all, is that we are all Nigerians with the same inalienable rights guaranteed by the constitutions. Guaranteed by the constitution. We have the same right. We have the same right. But even that, it's a privilege today, isn't it? Isn't the Nigerian story one of survival at a time when we are struggling with leaders that have continued to entrench the culture of corruption with impunity? See, the people who are now members, most of them, that are now members of the National Assembly were perhaps people who have served in other administrations before. Some in the capacity of governors of states, some as ministers. People who have served in lucrative leadership positions in this country. They are the ones in the floor of the National Assembly. And what are they doing? They are making laws for us. The same people are responsible for the decay that we are currently complaining about, the decay we are contending with right now. They are there making laws for us. Think about that. There's something wrong with this system, and the truth is, we may never recover from it at the rate we are going.